Hello, my name is Jeff, and I have decided to go ahead and pitch my movie idea on video here because I'm not going to make this movie. A few weeks ago, I said on Facebook I had a great idea for a movie, and it's a good idea. It's just that I'm not going to do it. I've got another movie that I shot half of in 2013, and I haven't been able to do anything with that. So I'm not going to move on until I take that and make something out of it, even though the movie's not shot and completed yet. I'll try to make a different movie. Anyway, this movie idea I had, and I know the reason I had it is because I get really angry about the wickedness of conservatism and how it now is killing people. So it's about the wickedness of just a few people who think that they are Christians. They actually call themselves Christians. In the Idaho legislature. The story is about a young woman in her late 20s, early 30s. We'll call her Mildred. And her parent, one of her parents, and I leave it up to you to decide whether it's a woman or a man, is a member of the Idaho legislature on the Health and Welfare Committee. A Republican. And if it's a man, we'll call him Dakota. And if it's a woman, we'll call her Caitlin, spelled with an R. They are, whichever one you choose, in their mid-50s. And if it's a man, he is a potato farmer. And if it's a woman, she is a homemaker and a Relief Society president. This is particularly ironic because the Relief Society was established in order to take care of the poor. It's a Mormon office for women. If it's a man, he's a high priest in his, which is a level of priesthood in the Mormon church, possibly a bishop. It doesn't really matter because he's going to hell anyway. So Mildred, the young woman, I realize I'm not doing a great job of pitching this. Mildred makes about $8 an hour, and she's scheduled to work 27 hours a week. She can't go over that because if she does, her employer, maybe it's a fast food restaurant or a hotel, something like that, her employer would be forced to provide health insurance for her. So she doesn't have health insurance, and she makes little enough money that she would qualify for Medicaid under the Medicaid expansion. She does not qualify for any sort of assistance from Obamacare that would allow her to purchase health insurance on the exchange. 27 hours a week is plenty for her. She's got problems with her knees. She may have the early onset of arthritis, some other problem that causes her to not be able to work a lot. But even if she could work a lot, she'd have to get another job because her employer, again, will not schedule her for more than 27 hours a week. She lives in Boise with some roommates. She rents out a room in a house that they all share. She's very much against her parents' politics, and a lot of it has to do with this healthcare thing. She thinks it's unconscionable that these few people, this handful of people, have prevented poor people in Idaho from getting health care in order to make President Obama fail. Even though he's not even in office anymore, they still pursue this line that it's wrong to help the poor. A big waste of tax money. Well, it turns out that Mildred has stage 3 breast cancer. And how she found that out, that's entirely up to you, but I recommend that it cost a couple $1,000s that she didn't have, and so she is on the hook for that bill. She obviously cannot afford to have a mastectomy or to have chemotherapy. So she's going to die. She's decided, based on her family circumstances, that she's going to go to the Capitol building, set up a tent, and live there until she dies. She's going to die at the Capitol building. And she gets a lot of support from the progressive community in Boise. She meets a guy, we'll call him Jack, because I remember in the 80s every character, a leading male character, had to be named Jack. So in an homage to the films of the 80s, we'll call him Jack. She and Jack fall in love. That's not a big part of the story, but what he does to try to save her is an interesting part of the story. So the press gets wind of this, only the local press. The national press won't cover a story like this. She's determined to sit there on the lawn of the Capitol until the legislature allows her and others like her. God, this is going to go on forever, isn't it? I don't know, do I want to keep watching this or not? It's been 8 minutes already. Anyway, it's like a hunger strike, but it's just she's striking and she's going to let herself die of cancer at the Capitol building. So this goes on for several weeks, and some other people who also would be eligible for Medicaid come and join her in her sit-in. Jack has Huntington's disease. Shout out to David Heaven for giving me a heads up on this disease. This is a congenital disease that's passed on through one gene. If you have Huntington's disease, you have a 50-50 chance of passing it on to your children. And she knows this about Jack, and Jack is in his mid-30s. He'll probably die before he's 45. But Jack tries to save her in a couple of different ways. He knows that if she is imprisoned, she would have to be cared for by the state. They would have to take care of her cancer. They'd have to give her chemotherapy. They'd even have to give her a mastectomy, probably. So he goes to Oregon and he buys some marijuana. Maybe like 1.5 ounces of marijuana. He brings it back, he sticks it in her tent, and he calls the police on her. Well, she gets arrested, but he doesn't realize that that is, although it's profoundly evil in Idaho to possess marijuana, it's only a misdemeanor. So she's not going to jail, and it's her first offense. So she just gets pissed off. She's just mad, and rightly so. The other thing that he does to save her, I will tell you about later, because there's several different ways you can end this. One is by turning off the video now and stopping the pitch. It's been about 11 minutes. I had no idea it was going to take this long. I'm so sorry. Anyway, let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, her dad or her mom in the legislature, even though they voted against the expansion of Medicaid, they're now freaking out because she has taken this stand. They will not let her, she will not let anybody, not any church that offers, and her parents are very involved in the church, so they try to get help from the church members and from the church itself. And you can do this if they're Protestant. I just made them Mormon because I'm Mormon, and it frustrates me that these Mormons don't realize that they are responsible for these deaths. Anyway, geez, where was I? She refuses all of the answers that conservatives will throw at her, like, why don't you just move to another state, right? Because that's what they really want. They don't want poor people living in Idaho. They don't realize that if a poor person leaves Idaho, another poor person has to take that person's job, because those jobs need to be done. She says, well, can all the poor people just move to other states? No, most of them can't. I mean, you could, if you had a car, go to another state, live in your car, and that would be a possibility. Not a very satisfactory one. And most of the people who are dying don't know that they're ill anyway. It's because they haven't got the opportunity to go to a doctor that they get to the stage where they can't be saved no matter what state they move to. So she rejects that. She rejects all the offers from charities saying, well, are you going to do this for everybody in the state that's in my position? Well, no, we can't afford to do that. Okay then, no. Whichever parent it is, the woman or the man, Caitlin or Dakota, goes to their fellow legislators and begs them to change their mind. They have had a real change of heart. Of course, they can't, because then they would be primaried by someone who is closer to the Koch brothers' way of thinking, which is that poor people, if you just stop helping them, will stop being poor. I know it's a pretty stupid idea, but that's how conservatives feel. If you encourage poor people to be poor, then they will never be anything but poor. Not realizing that there will always be poor people in a capitalist society. There will always be winners and losers. The difference between our society and social democracies in Europe, for example, is that in Europe they provide a floor below which you cannot drop. It's very, 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 very hard to be homeless in a place like Sweden. Anyway, sorry to digress there. So part of the movie is her parent repenting, going around the state and trying to get her fellow legislators to change their minds. Of course they won't, because they would lose their $16,000 a year job. That's how much it pays to be a legislator in the Idaho House or the Idaho Senate. So how do we wrap this all up? There's three ways you could do it. My version, she dies. Because that's real life. Nobody really cares. So my ending, yeah, she dies. It's, you know, not a great ending. The happy ending is that the whole legislature comes together and they change their mind and they just take the flipping money. They just take the money, right? The money that all these poor people actually pay taxes to get this money. But not in Idaho, you can't have that. So anyway, they change their minds. They accept the Medicaid expansion. She is saved by that. She's accomplished her mission. But that happy ending is not very realistic. That's not going to happen in real life. So we've got to find a way to save her while still staying true to reality. The way we do this is through Jack, her boyfriend. Jack sabotages her birth control, and she becomes pregnant. Now this makes her very angry because she had not planned on becoming pregnant, obviously. But to save her life, Jack does that. And she is not the kind of person that would have an abortion. Oh, damn, now the wind is picking up. I'm almost done. So he sabotages her birth control. She gets pregnant, and that makes her eligible for Medicaid, even without the expansion. She's a pregnant woman, so now she can get Medicaid. She can get the mastectomy while she's pregnant. I won't hurt the baby. And then as soon as the baby's born, or even I think before the baby's born, she can go through chemotherapy. And that saves her. But these other characters that you've met on the lawn at the Capitol, they die because they don't get Medicaid. They can't just go out and get pregnant. Oh, another thing that happens. Mildred has a sister. Her name is Ethel, and Ethel's married and has a daughter. So Mildred's niece. Ethel comes to the Capitol, and she's got all this paperwork in her hand, and her niece has offered to well, they're going to make Mildred the guardian of Ethel. Ethel's legal guardian. That's another way she can get Medicaid, is by being the legal guardian of a child. She says, you know, that's a wonderful thing to do, but and I really appreciate it, but what about all the other people who are not going to be given the guardianship of a child just to save their life? They don't have that opportunity. And the little girl, she's like 9 or 10 years old, tells her how brave she thinks Mildred is, and it's a really touching moment. So this is obviously a drama with a little bit of comedy thrown in, where she gets arrested and she gets pissed off because it wasn't good enough. If you really wanted to get arrested to save your life, you would have to do something like rob a bank, so that you would be in for years. So your ending can be whatever you like. If you decide to write this kind of a thing and do it, somebody should do something like this, because people are really dying. I personally, I would not even know that I have a problem with diabetes if I weren't a veteran, and I get my health care for free from the government. Thank you, government. So God, that took 21 minutes. I'm sorry it took so long. If you've stuck around for it, I hope you agree that it's a good idea. Not a great idea, but feckin' close.